I start with this because I jumped to recent. I jumped to recent. What happened? We had like I would say fateful meeting with a boss of river administration in Czech Republic, which was like the ultimate instance, which decided 4 months ago whether we will continue or not. It was a meeting where, like, if we didn't succeed, we wouldn't be here. We probably would be somewhere else, but not in this house. And with Vlny Štvanice project, I will be probably just finding a way how to close it. But it was not possible to run it in the previous situation. And so we had to very well prepare for the meeting. And this was like the head slide of the presentation I had in front of the boss of the river administration. And what was my point was that, you know, what we've created is not just a little wave where a couple of freaks are surfing, but it's something more. And I explained that this whole project, and I actually think that's how the project works, is driven by like big idea, how we want to evolve, where we want to get, like a big vision that we share. And that's, I think, where the project takes power. And it illustrates, of course, that we expect that the river surfing will grow because we love the sport so much, and there are other people that consider it so much nice coming every day. So we expect that the sport will grow and that will attract more people, that maybe more people will decide to switch from ocean surfing to this or to combine it. Prague has, that it has its own place in Prague, in the center of the city, that it can be a city sport, it is a city sport, and it enriches the environment and the urban area. And that we wanna push it forward. So we don't want to just remain in this old, not very nice building and use this like concrete remains that we surf in, but we want to reconstruct, and we want to create like a really new and really nice place to sport on a long-term basis. And then I was explaining our story, and was the conclusion. The water lord said, "Okay, guys, it seems that it's a little bit more than I thought, and it deserves to live. So we're gonna keep our contract and continue operations." So we are here thanks to that, but it was not the first fatal point. We had more of them. When I got the idea about this presentation, I just wanted to share all those stories, all those fuck-ups that we went through. But then I realized when I was writing them down that it's at the end is not very interesting, because all of you go through some kinds of fuck-ups. All of you can tell a lot of stories. And I was asking, like, what they take away from our struggles and so on. So it still has the same name, 50 Shades of What Can Go Wrong. But finally, I don't want to do that much. This like diving into our struggles and be more positive, I hope. Let me begin with a brief overview how the river administration works, what the structure in Czech Republic, so you understand basically what's the system. So there are two ministries that are relevant for anyone who runs any water work, water sport, water whatever. And that's the Ministry of Agriculture, that's the primary one, and then the Ministry of Environment, that basically establish all the other institutions that are our partners. Then the most important is the river basin administrators. It's like the povodí. It's called povodí. It's river basin is all the area that that covers some river and the subsequent rivers and all the streams that go into the river. That's the whole area that is affected. And we have like enterprises for each major river. So in our case, it's Vltava. So it's river basin Vltava is like the enterprise relevant for us, and that's our direct water lord. Then there are other water management agencies like the wastewater agencies and so on. And, they can also be relevant, especially in case you plan some new project. You have to consult with them. You have to have their permission, consent, or at least some comments. And very limited. For example, in Germany it's very different, but here it's very limited. But some word has also the municipality and local authorities, who in Czech case administer primarily the like flood protection measures, and then some smaller waterworks. But the main partner is the river administration, the so-called state enterprise established directly by the Ministry of Agriculture. So what was for me very important when we were discussing if this project has some right to exist and whether we deserve to have the contract with them and them to keep the conditions, so, which means they provide us the water in the time slots when we have the sessions. I was looking at like what is their mission, like what they are established for, because I wanted to use this argument in the discussion with the water lord. Like, what's your mission? Like, why are you here? You were established by a law, and the law says that they have some key responsibilities. And it doesn't say much. It's very general. It says that they have to manage all the major water courses, that they that they manage all the structures that are built on the rivers, that of course they manage the flood prevention, and they have to manage all the ecological and other consequences that the rivers have. But there is also this clause, water-related services and maintaining hydraulic structures. And when you deep dive into what the water-related services are, then you see that their responsibility is to meet, or is to equilibrate, how to say, like make equal all interests that are on the river. Because in our case, it's very illustrative, I think. If all of you that were on the wave, you could see that there are big boats floating through. So that's another interest. There is a water power plant. There are the fishermen, and there are ecological organizations that oversee fishes, welfare, and so on. So all of these actors, let's say, have their interest, and we represent, let's say, the sports or public interest in sports and free time usage of the water work. But how the water lord usually behaves or acts, they prioritize the economical aspect, and that's a structural problem in our case, because they are self-financed, which means that they don't receive like budget from the state, but they have to earn money from the water power plants, from the services they provide. So the state gave them the assets, like power plants and so on, but it said like, but manage it by yourself, make your money, and be as efficient as you can. So they are primarily economically driven because they need to finance their operations and so on, which is not the most effective one you could meet, I guess. So this is one important aspect to always consider. I think what is the water lord's main drive? What is their main interest? and how they work economically, who finances them, and what's their general mission, what's their purpose. But this point that their responsibility is to take into account all interests that appears on the river, and you are the relevant one because we are already here, so we are one, so they have to somehow consider it. Of course, there is a question how to enforce it. Now let's get to the story a little bit, so you understand the context. This waterwork that we surfed on was built in this shape, in this like frame, let's say, in 80s already, and it was meant originally to be like the main wild water course in Czech Republic, this sport part, and it was made very grand, very big. I think my hypothesis is that it was in times in 80s where the water power plants were not important because everybody was burning coal, so some water energy was not interesting. It was like old power plants. The modernization was very costly, so they just, I think the engineers didn't give a fuck about the electricity, and they just designed a sport course that can get water, enough water anytime. But this is not the case practically these days, and that's also, I think, the reason why the original project has never happened. They just constructed the courses, but for another 20 years, it remained empty. So the project never happened. You know, then communism fell, so all the conditions changed. But then in 2004, there came Army Club, or in 2003 they started, and they managed to found creation of training course. It was not meant to be publicly available, so they didn't have to care much about some safety and so on. So because it was just, you know, army training spot, so it could have any. It didn't have basically any limits. And they succeeded, and they built it, and they used this house as their base for almost 20 years. At the beginnings, it was quite frequently used. It was in a good shape and so on. But then a couple of floods came. It was hard to maintain, and finally the army stopped or almost stopped using it, and it was obsolete for them for a couple of years. And there was a problem because there was nobody willing to do something with that. You know, in army, you are just usually the officer, and you don't do things you don't have to do. So it was just in the air. And as the time continued, there was a threat that army will leave, or situation when army tended to leave this house and move to the second course to Troja, which is like this best one of the best in the world. So of course they were primarily willing to train there. And leaving this house meant to leave also the course, and if they just canceled the agreement with the river administration, there is one condition: when you go away, you have to take your stuff away, which means to clean the course from the obstacles, from all the wires, everything. Like they would have to basically clean it to the concrete shape, original shape. And that would be very costly. At this time, my friend, who is a trainer in Army Club, in my Army Sports Club, he told me, like, if I don't want to somehow treat with that and try to save the site for water sports, and that basically how the whole idea evolved. But my first concern was like, but it's next to the Troja, and it's hard to compete with Troja, one of the best courses in the world. And he said, like, but there is the initial jump, and there could be like a surfing spot. I said, how do you think? What do you mean surfing spot? There is this river surfing. it's a new sport, and it's be nice to surf there. So like, oh, it's interesting, and it might be like a way how to survive economically, how to differentiate from Troja. At this time, I just had a couple of surfs somewhere in Jamaica when I was there on the trip, but I've never been surfer before. I was doing the wild water sports like canoe slalom, so I was far from surfing, but it seemed to me like a good way to go. So we started to work on this project, and that's how Vlny Štvanice, the Štvanice waves, or the translator also says the hunter's waves. I like this because Štvanice is like the hunting island. So it's originally it was hunting area. So that's how Vlny Štvanice was born, and but it took some time because to negotiate with the river administration and army, basically Ministry of Defense, that you want to take over some rental with some concrete stuff in the river was not very simple because they don't have like processes written for this case. So we were negotiating almost 3 years, and there were many times when I was just thinking that I give it up, this is not worth, but there always came my hairdresser, and he always told me, no, you have to do it. I want to surf on Štvanice. And I said, okay, I continue. Then I came again 2 months later. I said, oh fuck, it's real fuck. And he was cutting me and said, no, you have to do it. You have to do it. Okay. So I have to thank him because he's the main driver behind this project at the end. And he hasn't been surfing here yet, which is also funny. But sometimes he persisted, and in 2021 we made like a first crucial point, which was also for me a check whether it really makes sense and whether there are people interested in surfing in Prague. And we made a crowdfunding campaign because for me it was important not to go and ask for money to some state agency or so, but I wanted to have the response from the potential users and the members, if they really are willing to have the wave here, so much that they take out the wallet and send some support for the idea. And the response was quite impressive. We collected like 20,000 euros for this purpose, and it was enough to build like the first construction. And in 2022, at the beginning of the year, we finished it like this, and we turned the water on, full of expectations. And that is from the first session. And there were young surfers, and they tried it a couple of times, and then they said, guys, it doesn't work. It's not surfable. So it was quite a disappointment because we cooperated with the technical university with a guy that is professional in it, and I completely relied on his expert opinion. As I didn't have experiences, I completely didn't expect that it won't work for this first time perfectly, but then I was asking like what's happened, and he said, I think this parameter not, yeah, we have to change it a little bit. So, the season was basically off, and we had to deconstruct all the construction. We had to rethink the shape. We create a couple of models, so it was quite, yeah, all the summer season we spent with searching the way how to reconstruct it and then basically deconstruct it. That's the way where the enthusiasm of the supporters fell close to zero, and with each workshop we organized, there were less helpers. Until finally I was always asking this is an artist, some famous painter, that please could you come to help me with the wave? He's like, okay, I reserved one afternoon, and I will go to help you. And so it took all summer. It was really tough summer, but at the end, in the end of September, this was the last guy that remained and really finished with me the reconstruction. And when we put there the last nail, he said, like, call them so they turn on the water. And we asked the water lord to turn on the water. And he jumped on it and he told me, like, we have surfed up a wave. I said, great, so let's start the surfing season. It's October coming. That's the best time to start. At this time, we only had disponible just one room in this house, and yeah, the whole winter was ahead. But that was a moment, and I think that's another good tip when you want to create a hardcore core for your team or association or whatever. It's good to start in winter because it selects like the real fanatics that will stay with you, whatever happens. That's how you cherry pick really the most important partners for you. Starting in spring, you know, everyone goes for the wave in the summer, but when you start in October, that's how you identify the potential partners. So now, how the contract with the administration is constructed? So what are the rules of our operation? That's the contract. We entered into the contract in 2022. So at the beginning of the year, when the struggle with the first version of the wave started, and at this point we had a big advantage because the river administration didn't have much experiences with projects like us. There are several other wildwater courses, but they are always, you know, municipality clubs or so, state-driven, and it has a long history usually. So there are some historical, how to say, like, common rules from past that everybody keeps, and they don't have to rethink it. But in our case, they had to completely newly construct the contract, and they didn't expect that we will run so frequently, I think. So we used the military contract, which was designed for sometimes we go for training, and we received quite good conditions because they didn't expect so frequent operations. We neither, I must say. And in the contract, the subject is basically rental of the land under the wave and the wildwater part. There we pay yearly rent of like 4,000 euros, so it's not much. But then we have this compensation payment for each hour of water running. The compensation is for reducing the power plant's performance, because when they give the water to us, they have to decrease the performance of the electric power plant. And recently we pay like 15 euros per hour, and in the range, when it's under 45 cubic meters of flow in the river, then it's drought, and we cannot get the water. So we operate above 45 cubic meters, and until 200 we pay. Above 200, which starts to be like close to floods, basically, we don't have to pay. Recently, or yesterday, today the flow reduced a lot, but yesterday the flow was above 200, so all the yesterday sessions were for free for the association, for example. So the contract is simple as this. it has a weak point, but the strength in the same time. It doesn't go into detail. And the devil is in the detail, as you know. And the detail is like the way we interact with the operators, the way we organize our schedules and so on. And why I said it's weak point and the strength in the same time. When you understand how the waterwork work, then you see that we have to cooperate. If some party started to, be asshole, then the whole system breaks up. So we need mutually to be cooperative. And I think the Water Lord at the beginning had a feeling that they are the only one who can be cooperative. But I think that they understood, especially after our meeting with the boss, that also we have some power, let's say, and that it must be mutual cooperation. And in this point, what works very well is almost a friendship of Honza Kukuc with all the operators that work on the waterwork. And thanks to the good relationships, we are in communication. We are able to manipulate a little bit the flow when the wave is not optimal, and so on and so on. But it's all up to good relationships, because at the end, if you understand how the waterwork works, it's even impossible to put it into the contract as some defined conditions, like, if the water flow is like this and there is no big boat running and the power plant is like this, then we can increase your flow. Like, it's hard to translate into legal conditions, or I think almost impossible. So that's important observation in our case, and that's one base for us. The second base is the house. The house is owned by a municipality, but it was not like this when we came. It was in a process of transfer from previous private owners, so that's why we had only small one room dedicated. But at the beginning of 22, we received the whole house. And when we are in the construction works that were completely voluntary, so we usually met around 5 after work and started to reconstruct. So that was also the point when Paul came for the first time, and how we met. We were painting some room or something, and suddenly this bald guy appeared, and I absolutely didn't understand what's going on. Just left a couple of stickers and left again. So this is how we met. Thank you, Paul, that you returned again. So this association happened. So yeah. Obviously, the boathouse is super important for the community, because the people can leave here the gear, they can meet here, exercise here in the winter, and so on and so on. Or if you want, I can guide you later. But this house became like a heart for the community, and the facility is super important. I know that some of you operate the wave that doesn't have like a physical building nearby. So it's also interesting for me to see how your cloud operation looks like, because it's hard to imagine for me now with the experience how to run it without the facility. But you do it somehow, and I really admire that you made it. But in the same time, the house again is advantage, but also big burden. Because you suddenly become a landlord. You suddenly become the one who operates and maintains and covers the bills and so on. So it's also a big responsibility. And as the house is new, not new, but newly owned by municipality. Municipality doesn't have idea how they want to treat with that. And as there are companies who maintain the house for the municipality, they start to come behind our back with their projects, how they would approach the reconstruction. And we didn't know about it until the last moment when it almost started, the project of reconstruction, and it would not be very beneficial for us because it wouldn't take into account our needs. So at this point, we started to cooperate with one surfer that is architect in this community, and he quickly draw for us like a vision how the house can be reconstructed, and we persuaded the municipality that they shouldn't go with the project of the maintaining company, but they created like a regular architectural study that takes into account needs of skaters, ours, and the context of the island in general. So this is how we stopped the reconstruction, but for our sake, because the reconstruction is postponed, we will be a little bit longer in this like punk style conditions. But in future, it could look like this because the study has been already finished and the municipality likes it. So we'll probably go in this way. Last topic I would like to cover, the last two topics are floods. Because in our case, that besides storm, waterlord, floods are the crucial point that stops our interferes, and it's like usually quite tough to recover. Here is like what it means in numbers when it's around 300 meters cubic meters flow. That's something we are still capable to serve somehow, but beginning with 450, it's officially like the first stage of the floods. It means that all vessels are not allowed to surf, to ride, or whatever. And what is interesting is that at this point we had experience freshly that there came a criminal police here and started to investigate us because on social networks there was a video from a flood wave that creates here, not on our wave but in the second curse. There is a flood wave, we call it beast wave, and the surfers love it. It's really something special. And one guy at the beginning of the floods was surfing and played some video on the social networks, and as the floods were evolving, the video got over 4 million views because of the irresponsible guys that are reckless and go to surf when other people are dying on other places and so on. So it became like a witch hunt for surfers and kayakers who dare to go to the water during floods. And the criminal police started to investigate it. And they came and started to they wanted me to tell them his name, this guy. I thought, like, no way, I will not share the name of the fellow. But it's like, I'm obliged to cooperate with the criminal police, but I said, but you will have to torture me because it's not, like, I really won't do it. So it was interesting, like, it was just funny discussion, but what was his argument was that vessels are not permitted to go on the river. But I said, surf is not a vessel. Maybe kayak can be a vessel, but surf is definitely not a vessel. The definition, the legal definition, doesn't work. It's no. It's like our superiors see it like this, so we have to investigate it, identify the guy, and see what's going to happen. And that's I think a very important point to understand. It led me to really deep dive to the legislation. What's the vessel? Because I never had the idea that we can be subject of the big boats rules, let's say. But we are. I concluded that even kayaks and canoes or rafts are vessels in the legal definition, but definitely not surf. Surf is like a swimming, how is it called, like a supporting tool, but it's not a vessel because you don't have any pedal. You just swim with it. You don't pedal. You don't vessel anything else. So that's, I think, important to understand this in your legal context and to go for definitions, because it might be crucial when you differentiate or not from these rules, when you are obliged to follow the big boat rules or not. And what's happening after the floods? We have to cooperate closely with the administration, so they enable us to reconstruct the site. They have to provide a special permit to bring there a lot of gear and to stop the water completely for some time and so on. And it's always quite tough because it requires several attendances. It's not possible to make it once and so on. So the floods are always like testing quality of the relationship between us and river administration, but I must say that recently they were very cooperative and we succeeded with preparation for the floods very well. So the consequences were not dramatic, but it was just a lot of work to remediate. So we also created like a handbook or checklist for floods already. So there is quite clear task list what are all the measures we can do to protect from the floods, because as the river is quite big in this part, when the big floods come, it's really like huge amount of water, huge power. This is from winter flood, which is smaller, but still you can see this is the place where you surfed. This is the wave, so you can see how big amount of water it is, and this is like 500 cubic meters, so so it's still quite small. Last thing I want to comment on is a recent process where we try to move our course from the course B, where it's now, it's the official name of the park, to the part A, and we are now in the process of negotiating the conditions, especially with the river administration. We have now a meeting with the water lord planned for November, when we should present how it will look like and how we imagine it. One of the biggest advantages for us is that it probably won't be considered as a building, so we don't need the building permission, because all of the obstacles that are installed there are movable. We can take them out, even though they are, of course, anchored to the concrete and so on, but it's still, they close their eyes a little bit and it's still movable. And so we just pretend that we just take these pieces of Lego and we put it here. So nothing major happens. And so far it works. It seems they seem quite positive regarding providing the permission. And this is like the final view of the future complex. We plan to provide access from the riverside, from the opposite riverside, which will be direct. So it won't be necessary to swim over, but we want to keep this boathouse because this area is quite close to another constructions and other buildings. So it's rare to have this house in this area. So we want to maintain it for the club purposes. And in the office building in opposite, we negotiate about renting, like the commercial premises that some brand, in best case, some brand would have. For example, we negotiate with Heiko which is producer of gear for water sports here in Czech Republic. So they have like a showroom and coffee there, and it could be like a reception for our wave, where you can come from the street and ask for, I don't know, rental of gear, and you can go. But it can be like this more, yeah, it will be like the facility just at the opposite side. So that's the final idea. That's also a point where I want to leave the project and then hand it over to others. But it's my goal to achieve this and give Prague a nice new place to surf. Unfortunately, we don't have like proper visualizations. There's a girl creating like a 3D model of the whole course. I wanted to show it to you, but it's the same case as with the website. It's so close, but not finished yet. But we plan to combine all the wild water sports there. So besides surfing, we also want to include paddleboarders, because they are not wanted on common slalom courses. We want to include rafting and so on, and we want to do a second wave that will be in Syria after the wave, the primary wave, and it will be part of the wild water course. But I cannot illustrate it, unfortunately. But that's the plan, and that's how we cope with the water lord. I think I already am exceeding my time a little bit, so I would finish with this. And now, yeah, now your questions or comments.